indeed, that is true. Yes, indeed, America. We are broadcasting from my house if you watch us on YouTube. That is because our studio is undergoing some well-needed, painting renovations and whatnot. But we begin this show with some sad news. Yet another natural disaster has hit the United States, and once again, Americans are forced to cope with the devastating symptoms of climate change. Hurricane Harvey has displaced an estimated 30,000 people into temporary shelters, and at least 5 are dead, in a toll that is expected to rise as floodwaters recede. Now, this is affecting all of Southeast Texas, and the pictures have been devastated. I mean, you have to be living under a rock to miss some of this coverage. I mean, it has been all over the news. It has been everywhere. Texas has also weathered the tragedy of other infrastructural and environmental reasons. We have seen 50 inches of rain in some places, 30 inches of rain. Now, a lot of the focus has been on just Houston, but Houston is just a small microcosm of what's happening throughout the state of Texas. In parts in Beaumont today, as we were taping the show, we saw hospitals being evacuated. We've seen, 6, 7, 8 feet of water in certain places. We've seen highways flooded. We've seen nursing homes flooded. This is some really, really heartrending stuff. And the only thing that you can sort of caution back to, or sort of reminisce back to, is what we saw during Katrina, which is sort of the same level of devastation where people lost everything, right? Just imagine for a minute, Fowler Nation, the ideal of losing it all. Not losing some of it, not losing part of it. For a lot of these individuals, they've lost it all, right? You're sitting in your home, you see the winds, you see the rain, and then the water starts to creep into your front door, starts to work its way up the driveway, creep into your door. Then it's on your first floor if you live in a 2-story house. Then it slowly starts to rise up the stairs. I mean, this is some devastating stuff. And listen, I'm from Miami, for folks who know that. I was raised in Miami, the Fort Lauderdale, Miami region, and lived through Hurricane Andrew. And while we didn't have the same level of flooding during Hurricane Andrew, we had wind damage. We were without power for a couple of days. And I know what this feels like. I know what this is. And especially for the first responders. So I talk about this all the time, but my mom is a registered nurse, and she's a critical care nurse. And so part of her job, so a lot of her friends, is they're the people that go in, right? They're the people that have to work during the storm. So they have to batten down their home and take care of their family. But before the storm makes landfall, my mom has to go into work to take care of other people. And so for me and my brother, we would go to other people's home. We'd go to my aunt's house, and my mom would go to work. And so there's a lot of folks in Texas who had to deal with the same thing, where your loved one was at work. Your mother is a doctor. Your father is a doctor. Your mother's a nurse. Your father's a nurse. Your parents are firefighters or police officers, or, they work for the city. They work in the command center. And so they're making sacrifices on top of sacrifices to make sure that other people stay safe. And so to those individuals, tonight, this show is dedicated to you guys. Because beyond making the sacrifice of having to lose it all, a lot of times you're doing it without a spouse, or you're doing it without a mom or without a dad, because they're at work making sure that other people are safe. And that has to be unique. It has to be even harder than just having to do it, right? But today we're all Houston strong. Today we're all Texas strong. And as Congress comes back next week, and we're going to talk about this throughout the show, but as Congress comes back next week, I urge our lawmakers to make the right decision, not only providing funding for Texas, but what are we doing as a nation to make sure that all of our coastal regions are prepared to deal with storms similar to this one, to deal with devastation similar to this one. Remember, we've had Katrina, we've had Superstorm Sandy, now we've had Harvey. Is America truly prepared to deal with another one of these storms if it hits our shores? Right? Are we truly our brother's keeper in every stretch and a definition of the word? right? So what we see in Texas, right, with all these boats, with people going out and saving each other, with people putting color aside and putting class aside and saying we're all coming together. But are we really that outside of natural disaster? That's a question we've got to ask ourselves, America. That is truly the question we've got to ask ourselves as we go back and we look at what took place over the past week and what will continue to take place as Texas tries and begins to dig themselves out of this horrific crisis. We'll be right back after this break.